Hi, John here. In this video I'm going to try to summarize the 12 months after I left the USA and flew over to Europe in order to apply for my investor's visa. So despite all the complications with labors, finances, health and hurricanes, I was able to finally finish the house with 1 year delay and put it on market on July 24th, 2017. I set the price pretty high because I needed to get compensated for all my losses. Soon first buyers started looking at it while I was observing them on my cameras I have installed. For the next 3 months I enjoyed living at this luxury house, which meant I had to pack all my belongings and clean it up before every showing. I need to mention this wasn't my first project. In fact, I have owned a total of 8 houses and this was house number 7. The 8th house I didn't get to renovate because I had to sell it prematurely and use the funds to finish this house. Unfortunately, I wasn't receiving any reasonable offers, which led me to make a radical decision to leave the States if nothing happens by the end of October. I lived in States since year 2000 illegally, which meant I had to take extreme measures to increase my investor's visa approval chances. I had to make plans to exit the US illegally crossing the Canadian border ditch to avoid authorities having my leave date on record. But just 2 days before packing, a storm knocked down a big tree which needed to be taken care of with the help of my neighbor. Then I rented a van because I sold my Taurus earlier. I cleared the garage and hauled all my stuff to rent a storage unit. I cleaned up the house, I polished everything, did my laundry, had a passport photo taken and got on the bus to Washington, D.C. I had to make a stop at the Czech embassy to pick up my temporary passport because my old one has expired a long time ago. I got on an Uber to get me to the hotel and my room had a green armchair. The next morning I rented a bike to have this taken care of swiftly. The ambassador, whose last name literally means joke in English, messed up a little, but I was able to pick up my passport. Grabbed my bag, said good morning to the ladies, grabbed some breakfast and off I was to Canada. An Uber drove me back to Union Station where I got on Greyhound bus. I've decided to undergo this 4-day cross-country journey all the way to Blaine, Washington State because I've been afraid to fly. I would only fly when it's absolutely unavoidable. I've never been on a bus in USA before because I've always had my own car, so for me this was an unforgettable experience. I witnessed a passenger being kicked out of the bus by this fat black Hitler driver lady. I saw a crazy nigga. I lost my Visa card during the process and I had to get an Uber in Kansas City to get cash from an ATM using my Apple Pay. This crazy journey was never ending. I was getting so stiff and tired. I had to change the bus a few times and some of the passengers were really weird. I've been skiing in Colorado's Rocky Mountains a couple times before and I love these fascinating landscapes of the Midwest. So when passing through Breckenridge, some memories came up. My first girlfriend since when I was 16 years old actually lives here. She's gotten married here. Even my book I wrote years ago includes Breckenridge in it. This bus driver was taking many smoke breaks, but I did get to see the canyon where Evel Knievel died, and I probably saw the narrowest bridge in the world, I guess. I had to abandon the bus station once more in Portland in search for another ATM machine. Thankfully, I was able to withdraw enough cash. While I was there, I rode a rental bike to the waterfront to take some pictures. I've been to Portland before and I love the West Coast overall for its climate. I remember people looking at me strange when recording on the phone while riding the bike. Then we passed through another beautiful city, Seattle, and I started my mental preparation for the border crossing. I had no idea what to expect when I get there. In Bellingham, I changed to the final bus to Blaine. I got off at Costco's where I bought some snack and ordered an Uber. It took 30 minutes for the Uber to get there to give me just 5-minute ride to the border. The driver's been asking me a million questions and a police car pulled behind us. I was getting really nervous. I was really hoping to not get caught by the border patrol, but then I went for it. My heart was racing and I jumped a ditch. No border patrol trucks were around and just like that I was in Canada. Greetings, Donald. I walked quickly through the neighborhood to get fast to my Airbnb I had booked. I located the house and the basement entry door. The key was in the lockbox with code I've been provided by the host, so I didn't have to talk to anyone at check-in. Suddenly I was in Canada and I was so relieved. Finally, I was able to get a shower because I stank like a polecat. I slept like a baby that night and the next morning my journey continued to Vancouver Airport where I had my plane ticket booked from. Because I didn't have any Canadian money for the train, I had to stop by the casino full of old Chinese people. I thought I arrived in China. I found out the Canadian bills are made of plastic. I rode the train to Vancouver's waterfront station and voila, here I was. I'm guilty, come get me. I illegally crossed to Canada, portraying a typical tourist. I apologize to all the authorities for breaking the laws, but I've done this crazy extreme measure act only to increase my chances getting my investor's visa. I wanted to be able to lead normal life in America and be able to grow grow and scale my business activities. Flipping houses is just the beginning. At the airport, I had no issues to get through. I reached the gate pretty beat up, and then I took off to fly halfway around the world to London. Canada is a beautiful country, no doubt, but I wouldn't want to live there. It's too cold for too long for my taste. This was my first flight after a very long time, but my anxiety went away once we landed in Calgary, where I had overlay. Ever since 9/11, I was really afraid to fly. I thought I'll never be able to fly again because of my anxiety, but I was calm the entire flight across the ocean. This was the only video I recorded on that flight. The plane didn't crash and I had about 5 hours overlay in London. Plenty of time to think about everything. Is this journey really gonna serve its purpose? Will I ever get back to USA, flip houses and live my dreams? Will I ever ride my bike by the Wrightsville beach again? After I went through infinity labyrinth of Heathrow's hallways and escalators, I got on my final flight to Prague. It has been a very long time, almost 14 years since I've been here. Last time I visited was back in 04 to see a girl I met online. This was so weird. I've been thinking about coming here for so many years and now I'm really back here. I really did it. I was pretty excited I finally arrived, but the trip wasn't over yet. I still had to take a train to my birth town where I had my accommodation arranged for. I needed to go there to apply for new ID cards and passport to be able to apply for US visa. On that train, I met an American man who came to Czech 30 years ago as an English teacher, got married here instead, and now he's running popcorn distribution company. I also realized I can't talk shit to people in my native language because everybody will understand me now. After 7 days of travel from Fayetteville, North Carolina, I finally reached my final destination, Havířov City, Czechia, the town where I was born. Nothing changed here. The train station looked exactly the same as 20 years ago. I reached the accommodation facility at about 5 a.m. and the receptionist was already waiting for me. I found this place online and the room cost me only about $7 per night, which was right on my budget. I could stay here forever. The room didn't look as bad and it was so quiet. The next day I looked pretty rough, but I had to get up and get going to start taking care of things. It was so quiet outside, no V8s rumbling under my window. First thing, I went to the city hall to apply for new ID documents that took 3 weeks to get. Following days I spent exploring the city. Some things changed here. Like this monument's been built, but the popular diner has not changed at all. And of course, I had to eat lots of Czech food. I had goulash and many other Czech cuisine meals, and beer and coffee. I even passed by my sister's place, but I didn't go visit. I didn't tell anyone yet I was coming. I bought a cheap Samsung phone which died 10 days later and they gave me this pink Nokia loaner instead. While I was waiting for my documents to arrive, I started running in nearby forest which was close to the place where my mother used to live. Now she lives at Myrtle Beach, which is much better than this. One day I walked over the big hill to the dam where I grew up. My father built our house at the other side, but I had a house in America now which I needed to sell. I kept observing all the showings and followed the feedbacks and statistics, hoping someone will fall in love with it and make an offer. But no offers were coming in. There was always something the buyers didn't like. Neighborhood, road noise, close to water. Then I called my longtime friend Dominique to meet up before Christmas and she was gonna let me know when. I picked up my new passport and IDs after 3 weeks of waiting. Then I gathered an entire file of documents to attach to the investor's visa application, which I then mailed to the US Embassy in Prague. They had 4 weeks to review it and schedule my interview date. I was spending the waiting time by cooking, running, working out, watching TV. I even joined the gym I used to go to 20 years ago. It looked exactly the same as before. Nostalgia kicked in. Then the winter came and Dominique hasn't called back yet and I really wanted to go see her before I head back to States. So I've decided to go shopping to Ostrava City for her Christmas gift, and if she doesn't get back with me, I will give her a surprise visit in Vienna. I bought her a book she's probably never gonna read and then I had it gift wrapped. Then I went exploring city of Ostrava to see what else is new here other than new shopping mall. And the entire historic downtown has been renovated, getting ready for Christmas market now. They had a nice Christmas market set up back in Havířov City as well, full of rich performances program and food and punch. I went out there a few times and I remember buying some meat products from this charming old lady. I've been hanging out with the old people way too often, but Dominique never called me back, so on December 21st I went ahead, packed my bag and got on a train to go surprise her. Because I couldn't plan this in advance, the train cost me twice as much and I really didn't have budget for it, but I had to go see her regardless. Last time I was in Vienna was back in 95. We used to go there every Christmas with my then girlfriend Paulina. I always loved this Christmas atmosphere there and I wanted to experience it again. It was raining the entire day and I was getting soaking wet and cold. My camera and my phone suffered too. I drank the famous punch and then I went to search for Dominique's apartment. I didn't know where exactly she lived, but I was able to locate the address. I was standing by the door for 5 hours in the rain waiting for her, and then she finally showed up. She was uncomfortably shocked but handled it well. We talked for only about 10 minutes because she was heading out to a Christmas party party, but mission accomplished. Back in Havirov City, I hung out with the old retired people from my floor. I entertained them a bit while preparing the Christmas dinner. I've been picking on them, especially this old fat gypsy woman who fell in love with me. She was really ill and was taking lots of pills, but she was tons of fun. We prepared lots and lots of food, and then I had to burn all the calories running up and down the stairs with some borrowed dumbbells. Then the New Year's Eve came and I bought some cheap fireworks and fired it up at front of the building. Then I walked downtown to see the real fireworks. My sister was watching the same fireworks from her window, but she didn't know I was there. My E2 visa US Embassy interview was scheduled for January 12th. I got on a train early in the morning full of hopes, but I was really nervous because their decision could go either way. This day could really change my life. I could either start living legal life back in the US or I could get stuck here not knowing what to do. I thought I was gonna pass out while waiting in there. I was literally the very last person to be called up to the window. The ambassador has never seen the file I mailed there. He asked me to tell him something about it. Then he asked me when I returned back from USA. In that split second, I was trying to choose between the two answers. I could either lie and say I returned a long time ago. That's actually what I crossed the Canadian border for, or I could tell the truth. So I chose to tell the truth, hoping he will be tolerant and appreciate my honesty. Not only my application was denied, but I also received 10-year bar for overstaying my tourist visa. I was really depressed. I returned back to Havirov, got drunk and reduced the price of my house radically. Couple days later, I went to Brno City because I couldn't stay in Havirov anymore. I was running out of money and I needed to find a job to start making some income because I had a storage unit back in Fatville to keep paying for. I had some trouble finding a place to stay in Brno. This place was cheap, but it was full of gypsies and I had no Wi-Fi. So I asked for a refund and spent the first night at a hotel. I went to a bar that doesn't exist and was spending money I didn't have in a city I didn't know. Then I found this affordable hostel by the old tracks, but it had no laundry, so I had to keep dragging my bag to remote laundromat. I kept reducing the price of my house weekly to sell it quick because the property taxes were due and I had no money for it. I've been running regularly while trying to live on a budget and I saw a big dildo downtown Brno. Because I was so depressed and frustrated about how things turned out, I started recording these videos in English about my twisted crazy story. I wanted to explain how I ended up here and how I'm all screwed up now, but I never got to finish it and publish. I had other things to worry about. My property taxes were due and I really had to focus on selling my house, so I've been closely monitoring all the showings. But all the buyers always had some kind of issue with the house. That's when I first met my future agent buddy. Eventually I started searching for a job. I would take any kind of job except a factory. During the process I had to run away from the public transport inspectors because I didn't buy a bus ticket. I applied at Remax to become real estate agent and done some training, but it didn't work out. I started learning German with Anya on YouTube because I thought maybe I should look for a job in Austria instead, and I also wanted to talk to Dominique for longer than 10 minutes. I gave it another shot and went to Vienna to surprise her again. This time she was at home and luckily she had time to sit down and talk for 2 hours. She poured me a beer and we even talked about what happened in New York 6 years ago. I was really happy to see her, but she didn't want me to keep showing up like that anymore. Back in Brno, I was trying to stay sane by working out in the room and kept monitoring the house situation. I got in touch with property management company because I was running out of time and taxes needed to get paid. I was even considering renting the house. They photographed the house, but the pictures didn't turn out well because they didn't turn the lights on. They even brought in a model and took some more pictures. And then this guy Kyle showed up. He was some inexperienced agent who brought me a buyer with an offer of $265,000 and I signed a contract on February 7th. He had buyers from Florida and they never saw the house in person. They only seen pictures and videos he recorded for him. I then had to contact Cumberland County tax collections and ask for tax payments extension. I told him I have a buyer and the taxes will get paid at closing on April 7th and they agreed. I was so relieved I will not end up losing the house in foreclosure. At that time I ran out of money and I was forced to get in touch with my sister and ask to move in with her, which was an easy task to do. The last day I took stroll around Brno to take some pictures and videos and I ran into this guy, a famous Czech actor, Bolek Polivka. After almost 1 month in Brno, I packed my bag and traveled back to Havirov. I didn't really need to search for a job anymore. All I needed to do was survive 60 days till closing and then I can reimburse my sister back for supporting me. My sister works as a fitness trainer and lives in a studio apartment and we were gonna share the same bed for the next 2 months. We reunited after 4 years when she visited me in Wilmington back in 2014. She's been feeding me and we've been shopping economically for groceries together. She wasn't really happy I moved in with her and from time to time she made a scene about it, complaining she doesn't have enough money for both of us. But I kept telling her once I cash out the house I will pay her back. Her apartment is really cramped and it was really challenging to live there together, me occupying her personal space. On Valentine's Day she asked me to take some pictures of her with the roses she received from her boyfriend. I've been killing time sitting on Wi-Fi for hours so I don't use my sister's limited data. And I was still dealing with the Samsung phone that died again and I had to turn it in for repair, and they gave me this pink Nokia again. I've been cooking a lot for both of us, some fitness diet meals. Chicken, lots of protein, lots of pea soup. I've been trying to stay on top with my physique by working out and running. I even started working out at a street workout park and watched lots of YouTube videos because I wanted to learn the muscle up. And it kept snowing and the snow never melted. While I was waiting for all the house inspections, I continued learning German with Anya because I still wanted to go back to Vienna eventually, maybe to live there for a while to increase my chances with Dominique. We've been recording lots of voice messages to each other during that time. And then this guy Kyle showed up again with the buyers who wanted to be present during the home inspection. He's never disclosed to them that the house was in a flood zone. Once they found out about the flood insurance cost, they terminated the contract and I was forced to put my house for rent to generate funds for my taxes. Then I wanted to register with the labor department, but I wasn't eligible for any kind of welfare. All the problems started added up, plus I went to a doctor and I tested positive for chronic chlamydia pneumoniae, which is a lung infection. This contract termination motivated me to get back to recording my crazy story videos again. My sister was freaking out. I was broke, unemployed, couldn't get back to America, property taxes needed to get paid, but most importantly, I didn't have money to pay for my storage unit. I have my computers and hard drives with all my memories stored in there and I don't want to lose those. I've decided to sell my Olympus camera, my iPhone 6s Plus and my GoPro, but I only found a buyer for the GoPro, which was just enough money for some food and train ticket to Brno where I had my beard cut for money. And this guy bumped my filming and I later discovered he was recently retired famous Czech tennis player Radek Štěpánek. It was during the Winter Olympic Games and they had this Olympic village set up at Brno's exhibition center with some attractions and activities for children. Then I borrowed more money from my sister and traveled to Prague to take paid part in this stupid reality TV show, and I met famous Czech TV host Honza Musil. While I was there, I took a stroll through Prague and recorded this video to get distracted from all my problems for a moment. My house is now for rent at $1,700 a month and the property management company is eagerly searching for qualified tenant. I was really under tremendous amount of pressure because I had no idea where I would get the $2,200 for my taxes from. I didn't really want to rent the house for obvious reasons. It would get worn out and after tenants leave, I would have to have it repainted and carpets steamed. All the appliances and bathrooms would get used as well. It wouldn't be a newly renovated house anymore, plus I would get stuck with it for at least a year and couldn't sell it. But renting was the only option right now and I was trying to make peace with it. I would have some cash coming in and I could just travel the world and wait for the rental lease to run out and then put the house back on market up for sale. My sister also wanted me to record some demo video for her with her coconut from Indonesia. She started working on her ebook and wanted to promote her fitness training in some way. That day was freezing cold and our fingers were about to fall off, but we made it. I was going completely mad and I had no idea what to do with myself. I thought my clusterfuck will be finally over, but now my future is completely uncertain. Where should I go and what should I do when I get there? But I knew I had to do something. In the meantime, my sister's boyfriend drove us to the frozen dam to just chill, shoot the puck and take some pictures, which reminded me the times when I used to play ice hockey in Charlotte or Virginia Beach or Wilmington. I've been skating a lot and got really good at it and won several championships. Also tore a meniscus and lost front tooth just like a real hockey player. One day they also took me to Ostrava's former industry complex, which is being converted to some modern venues, and my sister bought me a burger. I even started learning the parallel bars handstand push-up, but I couldn't really get a hang of it. During my job search, I almost landed a job as a kitchen designer, but they chose someone else. I couldn't find locally any other job than manufacturing. But even if I found one, I still couldn't be staying with my sister any longer. I had to find a job elsewhere with arranged accommodation. I've decided I will take the first job I will find and I move out so my sister can get back to her life. So we went out for a goodbye pizza dinner and no more sleeping in one bed with my sister. By the end of March, I got on a choo-choo and moved to Pilsen City where I found a job at a factory. At that point, I had no idea what I got myself into yet. This unplanned decision must have been destined because my little daughter lives there with her mother and I could at least arrange for seeing her. I have not seen my daughter since 2012. Things didn't really work out between me and her mom. But that's just life. She doesn't really know me, but she knows her father lives in USA where she was born. They put me in this shitty hostel full of Bulgarians and other nationality workers. The whole bathroom served as a shower and the stove was in a hallway. And I met my new Bulgarian roommate Boris. Before I started the working process, I recorded this short video downtown. I really like this charming city where the world famous beer Pilsner Urkel comes from. The Easter was coming up and I was able to get in touch with my daughter's mother to arrange for a meetup. At the same time, my property management company found me a tenant who was gonna move in April. I've been praying for this to work out to avoid losing my house in foreclosure. But then I had to face the reality. I had to go to actual work to make money for my storage unit. They drove us 60 kilometers west from Pilsen to this factory called Adyen that makes seats for the newest BMWs. Me and an entire group of other recruits had to go through a series of training, tests for monkeys and tuberculosis screening. Even the general manager introduced himself. I received work clothes clothes, and stinky work boots. 1 week later, I had to start working for real. This factory was full of Polish, Bulgarian, and Romanian workers. A few Czech and Slovak workers too, and we all worked as robots. I hated it there. The work pace was insane, making a BMW seat every 7 seconds. My fingers and my back were killing me. But despite the hard work, I kept working out outside, and I finally did my first muscle ups, and I kept practicing the handstands. Couple weeks later, they moved me to a different hostel near the newly opened American Liberation Monument. We had a kitchen in our apartment that I was sharing with another 3 Czech guys. But my relative contentment was cut short when my citizen watches got stolen from the wardrobe, and I had to call the police to report it. While I was working 3 shifts, my house got rented, and I had to apply for another tax extension until mid-May. This job was making me feel so miserable, but at least the food was good and free. I applied for a team leader position, and one morning after night shift, I stayed in for an interview but ended up hitchhiking back to Pilsen. I also found another part-time job for the weekends at Bauhaus. They had awesome lounge room where I've been taking a nap. I learned how to operate a forklift, and I started learning all the Czech names and nicknames of all the building materials. Soon I was able to help customers locate what they needed. I liked working there. I could at least talk to normal people and feel like a normal person and not like a robot. One time I dropped a whole pallet of cement, and with another guy we recorded this slow-mo. Before I bought a bike, I walked there for 45 minutes along the large Skoda factory where the locomotives are built. Oh, and yeah, I was still using the old pink Nokia phone. The snow has melted away and the Easter season was at a full swing. I paid for the entry to the cathedral's lookout tower and recorded this clip one day. Back in Fayetteville, the tenants paid their security deposit and first month rent. I asked the management company to drop the check off directly at the Cumberland County Courthouse, and that's how the first half of my taxes been paid. But then the tenants started having issues with the heating unit upstairs, and we were trying to solve the problem for them. 1 month later, they paid the rent for May, and the check been dropped off at the courthouse again, which paid off the remaining tax balance. I was so relieved they have not foreclosed on my house. Miraculously, I was able to make $2,200 appear and save the house literally the last minute. But the heating issue remained unresolved because there was no budget left for repairing it. I was trying to explain everybody that the taxes needed to get paid first, otherwise there would be no house for them to live in. Things got a little out of hands and the emails started getting gradually really nasty. It escalated to a point when the management company terminated the contract with me and the tenants stopped paying the rent. Luckily it was after the taxes were paid. This issue kept dragging for 2 more months, and eventually we reached mutual agreement. I was also able to maintain the storage unit payments and somehow kept it alive. Then one day I met up with my ex and my daughter. I couldn't believe how much she grew up. Last time I saw her she was 1 year old and now she was almost 7. She has another new dad at home and she was told I was her real father. But she kept calling me uncle, cute little devil. After a couple of weeks I didn't receive enough money on my advance pay. That's how I learned about debt warrant on me. I had to have the records pulled out of the courthouse to see what it was for. I realized I was over 500,000 Czech crowns in debt, which is about $25,000 when converted. 19 years ago my car was stolen and I was supposed to pay some insurance balance of about $800. But I've never received any invoice before I went to America and I was never aware of it. Over the years the debt grew from $800 to $25,000 with added interest and fees. And now all my earnings would get seized because of that. No matter how much money I would make, I would be only left with bare minimum. That's how ridiculously stupid these laws are here in Czechia. But regardless what the life kept throwing at me, I had to keep working on my physique. Then I went on fake sick leave at their factory job and started working as a UPS truck driver at the same time. I faked a resume for this job and I thought this could be a good start. But after 1 week of training, I only lasted 2 days. I was absolutely unable to deliver all the packages and I was coming back really late no matter how fast I was driving. I thought I would be just dropping off some small packages from Amazon, but I was actually hauling hundreds of heavy items all day from all the manufacturers scattered around this region. Driving to remote locations and I was absolutely exhausted, having no time to eat or drink. Then I got fired from the factory because I didn't show up for work in 2 weeks and I had to move out of the hostel. I also quit the UPS job. I didn't have a place to go, so the Bauhaus lounge became my home for a couple of days. I was basically homeless. Then I found this camp on Airbnb and moved in this container for $10 a night. Thankfully during this time I received a security deposit of $1,600 from my house, so I could afford this temporary solution until I found some shared apartment. This container had no electricity, no toilet, and no running water. I had to spend endless hours sitting at coffee shops charging my phones. But the best part was this outdoor shower. Just watering can with cold water hanging from the tree. I spent there 3 weeks, but I was only willing to pay for the first week. And that's how I met Slavek Kral, well-known low-budget traveler here in Czechia who's been keeping this camp. With the help of my agent buddy, I started actively working on getting the tenant out of my house for non-payment. Then I found this job where I was supposed to drive around region and sell natural gas. For this job, I bought a new used iPhone 8 because I've been so tired of the pink Nokia. I had no problem with calling the people up, but then we were going out to these meetings and I've seen some very unethical practices, so I quit this shit. I also quit the Bauhaus job because I didn't get along with one of the lady managers. I wanted to work there full-time in the outdoors department, so they prepared a new contract for me. But I forgot something that day and she started acting all arrogantly superior at me, and I'm not used to this kind of treatment. So I just quit and walked out. While I lived in that container, I was intensively searching for another place to stay and another job. It was just too much stress for me, so I started riding the bike in the country a lot to clear my mind. I've been biking all over the place. I've been going to this lake above the city to just chill and get a beer. I've been biking in the woods, discovering stuff, eating out most of the time. Finding a shared apartment was really hard because of so many people lined up. I started working on a birthday rap song lyrics for Dominique. We've been in touch all this time and sharing everything. I was really thinking about getting out of this country because of these ridiculous debt warrants. One time I spent 45 minutes on the phone with her while eating my first check burrito. And then I found this Mercedes-Benz test driver job. It was a pretty good gig, which I thought I might keep doing till the tenants get out of my house and then I sell the house. Just driving different Benz models around Pilsen City, listening to radio and entering data into computer. The money wasn't good, but it didn't matter because I'd be left with the bare minimum due to the debt collectors anyway. I took advantage of the soundproof cabin privacy and recorded the birthday rap song for Dominique and emailed it to her. She said it touched her heart and it was the most original birthday wish she's ever received. I was glad she liked it and I thought I collected some positive points with her. I met this girl online back in 2008 and I instantly fell in love with her. The Czechoslovakian Road Cycling Championship was held in Pilsen and I took a picture with Peter Sagan, 3-time world champion and 6-time Tour de France green jersey winner, the most popular rider with 1.3 million Instagram followers. At last, I was able to find a really cheap room in shared apartment with another 3 Polish guys. I paid only $130 a month for this room and I was really happy. Things turned out well. I had warm water, electricity, it was unbelievable. Now I even had a street workout spot right around the corner and I finally learned the parallel bars handstand push-up and some other stuff. I really thought I will stay here till I cash out the house. But 3 weeks later, after I returned from daily drive back to Mercedes-Benz garage, this shift supervisor started harassing me and bullying me for some things I asked earlier about. Because I was new, I couldn't possibly know everything about all the testing procedures on all the vehicles. I fired back at him because I'm not letting myself be bullied like this. It was a pretty intense moment. However, this incident ended my Mercedes-Benz career. At the same time, the debt collectors froze my bank account where I had the rest of my security deposit money and I was flat broke and unemployed again. Because I didn't have any money, I stole the rent money from the Polish roommates and I finally made up my mind to leave the country and find a job abroad. And where else should it be than Vienna? The money I had was good for just about 1 week of life in Vienna. On July 22nd, I got on the train and my bike came with me. I biked through Mariahilferstrasse and then all the way up to 16 Bezirk where I paid for a 1 week Airbnb room. The very next day I started searching for a kitchen help job and I almost got a job at a restaurant right on the university campus. But then I walked in this restaurant called 7 Stars Brewery and they hired me on spot as a dishwasher with 2-week probation time. The food was really bad there. Everything was oversalted. They made me to apply for social security number and residence certificate. And I was finally able to officially meet with Dominique. We had some beers at 1516 Brewery and a drink at Kruger's Bar. As a gentleman, I must always pay for everything, so that night I spent the rest of my cash. I've been riding my bike around Vienna a lot and I made this clip. Because I spent all my money with Dominique, I had no money left for food, so I've been taking home some leftovers from the restaurant. The job there was pretty easy, just some floor mopping, general cleaning and dishwashing. All I needed was to make enough money to pay for my room and for my storage unit in Fayetteville till I sell the house. Every time someone tried to speak English with me, I urged them to speak in German because I needed to improve my conversation skills. Then I had to request for some advance cash so I can pay for the room for another week. The Austrian owner had a new young Serbian wife who's been running the place. She's been watching us on security cameras how we perform in the kitchen. One day one of the African workers came to me and said she saw me taking some food home and I can't continue doing it. At another occasion she saw me texting because I needed to take care of something regarding my house and I think that contributed to having me fired before the end of the probation time. This caused me a big problem because I only had one shot at this. I had no room for getting fired. I started searching for another job immediately. Right across from Stefan's Dome is Doe & Co Hotel where I was invited for one probe day as a dishwasher. They liked my work and offered me a better job because they thought I was too good for dishwashing and they were gonna call me back. The summer was getting hot and I went swimming laps at the pool. I also spent some time with my Airbnb female roommates by the water and had some pictures taken taken. And of course, I had to stay on top of my physique and continued improving my calisthenics skills. While waiting, I kept learning German and done some strolling through the city, taking some more pictures as a typical tourist. I even saw people dancing salsa under one of the Donau bridges. But the call from the hotel wasn't coming and I ran out of money. I ended up selling my Olympus camera for 400 euros to buy me a couple more weeks in Vienna and to pay for my storage unit. I've been running up and down the hill in the woods above the city, but the call from the hotel never came. I started calling them, but after a few phone calls, they informed me they have decided to not hire me. But at least later, they paid me for that one day I worked there. I had to start searching for another job again. I was searching for work during the hottest summer days and my check ass was getting sweat in those black pants. I went to see a musical movie at the annual film festival at the Rathaus, and I discovered this extravagant place called Hundertwasserhaus. I have applied for a job at dozens of restaurants but had no luck getting hired. Thanks to having too much free time, I became a steel freaking cut statue. I even recorded another rap song for Dominique. This one was celebrating our 10-year acquaintance, but I guess I was just putting too much pressure on her. I kept asking her out for dinner while I still had some money left from that camera, but she kept avoiding me for weeks. I've been dreaming about going out for dinner with her ever since I met her online back in 2008. Then I got hired at an Italian restaurant Vapiano, but the manager wanted me to learn making pizza instead of dishwashing. But I couldn't learn making round pizza dough with all the Muslims behind my back. I was getting so depressed that I walked out 3 days later and never came back. I kept noticing all these chewing gums on sidewalks everywhere around Vienna, and I thought I might have a relevant business idea. I could start gum removing company because this is really hideous and I wanted to clean this mess up. I've done some research and I found out there are gum removing machines in existence, so I started putting this idea together. I created a logo and a business proposal I translated to German, and then I emailed it to the City of Vienna Street Maintenance Department and waited for a response. Unfortunately, I ran out of money by that time and I had no money for food, the Airbnb, and my storage unit. I went back to Chattanooga restaurant where I applied earlier, but they wouldn't hire me anymore either. I really wanted to stay in Vienna, so I started asking Dominique for help. I was hoping she might help me out till my house gets sold, but she didn't care. She said it's all my own fault I'm in this situation, like I didn't know that, and instead of helping me out, she accused me of emotionally blackmailing her, called me a psychopath, and blocked me on all the social media. All these years I thought we were good friends despite her not liking me, being in love with her. I've always been supportive of her. I've always wanted her to become her better self. She could have easily become an actress, a model, or influencer, but she just keep wasting all her potential. She didn't even finish the university and she quit her blog. She gave up the idea of creating something on her own and opted for the safe, comfortable life, just working at the department store, go on vacations, and wasting time with the wrong man. So this puts an end to this 10-year weird relationship with this miserable woman. It's over for me for good, and all the memories and flowers I gave her will vanish into oblivion. The tenants finally moved out of the house and my agent buddy was able to release the house for sale on August 24th. I was forced to look for another job with arranged accommodation elsewhere. On September 3rd, I traveled back to Pilsen City where I picked up my pay for a Mercedes-Benz job in person because they wouldn't send it to me to Vienna. I used this almost entire amount to pay $190 for my storage unit in Fayetteville, and then I traveled back to Havířov and stayed with my sister for next 5 days. I didn't really want to ask my sister for help again, but I had no other option. She bought a little convertible Peugeot car and didn't even tell me. One day she asked me to shoot some videos of her for her fitness training. Just when I was ready to leave for work to Netherlands, I received an email from Vienna City inquiring about my gum removing services and scheduled a meeting on September 19th. I wasn't really expecting them to respond, but they actually did. But now I had no idea how to make this happen. I started desperately searching all over Europe for a company that would lend me this gum removing machine for the presentation, but I was unable to arrange anything. I had to borrow some cash from my sister for my trip to Amsterdam, and of course my bike came with me. Somehow I ended up traveling in business class to Prague, but I didn't pay any extra charge for it. The mini champagne bottle was included in the ticket. I've always wanted to visit Amsterdam and now I got a chance to do it. After I arrived in Amsterdam Sloterdijk, I biked through the city to the Centraal train station, and I finally got to see Amsterdam and all the people riding their bikes through the streets around the canals. I got on a train and traveled another 60 kilometers up north to a city called Lelystad where I had my accommodation arranged. When I arrived in Lelystad, they were already expecting me and I realized I actually arrived in Poland. I got acquainted with my new Polish roommates, and as soon as I sat down and turned on the CNN news on TV, I learned about the Hurricane Florence heading towards the North Carolina East Coast. After all I've been through with the house, this was rather disturbing news for me. Then they drove us all the way to Venlo to apply for a Netherlands social security number, and I started working as a picker at Albert Heijn. I got a scanner and they put me in a big cooler, pulling cars through the aisles, filling the boxes with groceries people order online. At the same time, I was preparing for the chewing gum removal meeting in Vienna. I photoshopped some comparison pictures pictures and prepared entire presentation with some pricing examples for him. I did all of this on my iPhone and it was painstaking work. After many emails and phone calls all over Europe, I was able to arrange for a demo gum removing machine from Kercher right there in Vienna. I borrowed some bus money from my roommate and on September 17th I traveled back to Vienna again. Because I didn't have any money left for the train from Lelystad to Amsterdam, I pedaled 60 kilometers along the coast against the wind. It was a tough ride on my old beat-up bike, but it was beautiful, and after 5 hours I made it to Amsterdam. Me and my bike survived. In the meantime, the Hurricane Florence was gaining strength over the Atlantic Ocean. I recorded this video by one of the Amsterdam canals and then I biked to Sloterdijk station to catch my bus to Vienna. This overnight trip took 16 hours and we've been checked at the border if we don't smuggle any weed out of Netherlands. After I reached Vienna, I bathed in Donau River because I sweat on the bike. Then I had one copy of all the paperwork printed out and then I biked to the Kercher dealer to talk to the rep who was supposed to demo the machine for me just to make sure we were on the same page. But I realized he didn't know much about how to operate it properly, so basically I was just hoping he won't screw up the next morning. I had no money for a hotel, so I spent the night at the train station and a mosquito bit me right in my bottom lip, which swelled badly. In the morning I went to the meeting with the city of Vienna officials and then they drove me to Mariahilferstrasse to demonstrate the chewing gum removal. It all kinda worked out and they were pretty excited. I was told they have never cleaned the gums before and I was the first person who came up with this idea. But they explained to me that in order to have this kind of contract approved, there is entire politics involved and it will take some time to go through the approval process. Then I got back on the bus and underwent the same 16-hour overnight trip back to Amsterdam, and because I was so exhausted, I slept through the entire time. I biked through Amsterdam again and took some pictures while I was there. I was getting nervous about the Hurricane Florence and I couldn't wait till I get back to the hotel and turn on the CNN so I can monitor and coordinate with my agent buddy. I pedaled 60 kilometers back to Lelystad along the coast again, but this time I had wind on my tail so it was easier and a lot faster. Netherlands is several meters under the sea level and I was riding on the levee that prevents the land from being underwater. Following days, I've been monitoring the Hurricane Florence all day every day. I was really praying for my house to not get flooded because it's in the flood zone. I have already dodged the bullet twice. Hurricane Matthew flooded the crawl space and I ended up replacing all the new ductwork I installed a week prior, but thankfully the water didn't reach the floor frame. And then Hurricane Irma missed entirely. Agent Buddy tried to use sandbags, but I knew it wasn't gonna work. He's been monitoring the situation closely and keeping me updated with videos and pictures while the water was rising. And then the hurricane hit and brought the most rainfall in the history of North Carolina, and Cape Fear River swelled to record height. Record flooding everywhere except my house. Miracle! Thank you, God. Buddy then cleared a lot from all the debris. What a lifesaver. Next nearly 2 months I've been working this stupid picking job, running around the cooler with all these other Polish people jumping one over another in order to fulfill the ridiculous norm, scanning products and throwing them in boxes. If there wasn't these two Polish idiots, I wouldn't last there this long. But the most important part is I was able to make enough money to pay for my storage unit in Fayetteville. From the first extra money, I bought a bucket of protein and joined local gym with one of the guys. Started pushing some weights. I even did legs, which wasn't really a smart idea for my old bones because then I couldn't walk, run, squat, and bend down while reaching for products in the shelves at work. One Sunday, I went to Amsterdam to just do typical tourist stuff. I also wanted to take pictures of the chewing gums to maybe offer my gum removal services here as well. I took a picture at the Rembrandt house. I walked around the city. I just wanted to relax and chill for a while to see some of the sights and absorb the atmosphere this city has to offer. And I witnessed the boat collision when some tourists almost didn't avoid a big boat which couldn't alter its trajectory much. I could watch the boats roaming through canals forever. Amsterdam is a special city, but I noticed many of the old houses are leaning forward thanks to the soft ground. In Lelystad they have this museum called Batavia Land with some old ship replica. There's also a shopping mall with factory outlets where I went shopping for a new jacket because I threw away the old one and cold weather was coming. I was still recovering from the hurricane trauma, realizing how lucky I was. I have not lost the house in the flood because I don't have any flood insurance on it. But this job was driving me nuts. I wasn't able to fulfill that ridiculous norm anymore and they kept calling me in the office for explanations. I was so tired of stacking yogurt. One day I made a scene, slammed the door, and I quit. I wasn't the only one who quit or got fired. These two Polish idiots quit as well. We called this place a concentration camp. So I started searching again yet for another job with arranged accommodation. The last day before I left, I biked to the bay to watch the sunset with this Polish woman who also quit the job. Then I said goodbye to the endless Dutch bike routes and next morning I was off to England. Unfortunately, I couldn't take my bike with me. The bus wasn't equipped with the bike rack and the bus driver wouldn't allow me to load the bike into the cargo area. So I had to just leave the bike right there at the Sloterdijk station. Maybe it's still there. If I knew I wasn't able to take the bike with me, I would just sell it and take the plane instead, which is not a big cost difference. But at least I got to see the Eurotunnel and how they fit the double-decker buses on the shuttle train. Because I spent money on shopping and I quit the job prematurely, I didn't have much money left, so I was really thankful the lady from the recruitment agency arranged for accommodation at the job without the need of paying anything up front. I left Netherlands really helpless, all these different jobs and traveling. I told myself that England is my last stop. I'm not traveling anywhere else for some stupid work. If it's not gonna work out over there either and the house will not sell, I do not know what the hell I'm supposed to do with myself. My life is fucked up on so many different levels, there's just no way out of this mess. And suddenly I was in England. I could tell because the cars were driving on the wrong side of the road. Someone was supposed to come pick me up at Victoria, but there was some mix-up and I had to get another bus ticket to Reading, which is about 40 miles further west from London. I arrived late at night and some Hungarian guy came pick me up from the bus stop and brought me to the typical British row house where my room was arranged. There is no cooktop, common bathroom is upstairs, and the spring mattress is so worn out there is no cushion left. And I had to start paying for my own electricity. On Friday morning, November 9th, I walked downtown to get on Wi-Fi to contact the recruiter lady about the job registration, and she told me I had to get on the bus and get there on my own. And then I saw an email from my agent buddy with attached offer to purchase my house for $265,000. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was really happening. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. So I emailed him back and then I had to get on that bus and got registered at Tesco. Later that day, we negotiated the purchase price to $269K. So my house was now under contract exactly 1 year after I arrived in Europe. This was surreal. It will get sold after all. Back at Tesco, they put us through some training for yet another picking job, but this one was a little different. So I started picking again and cooking rice in microwave, and I started creating this video which I then accidentally deleted when almost finished, and I had to redo everything from scratch. I came to England absolutely hopeless with uncertain future, but now I know I'll be finally able to move on with my life. Now I only need to survive 30 days in the warehouse stacking Tetris in cages Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta till the closing on December 10th, and then perhaps get back to USA through Canada or Mexico and start flipping houses again. Hopefully Donald Trump won't build all the walls by then. And that concludes the 1 year after I came to Europe.